back in Rajasthan. My journey begins in Rajasthan. I went to school in Rajasthan, in Pilani, did 12 years of schooling in Pilani, and then went to Birla Institute of Tech and Science. And when I graduated with a degree in museum studies, of course, Indian parents were paranoid. They wanted me to pursue a career in medicine. I ended up pursuing a career in museums. And the big question mark was, what next? Can you land a job? And fortunately, the day I graduated, I ended up working with the CK Birla Group. And I was involved with this project in Jaipur. Those of you who've been to Jaipur, this is a landmark institution that came up in different phases. I ended up being its first director. I was not even 25 at that time. And this began my journey into the world of museums, covering all sorts of topics from entomology to paleontology to archaeology to ethnology to anthropology and so on and so forth. And I've been blessed and been very fortunate to have worked on over 100 assignments in about 11 countries. And it has been a humbling experience. It has been a learning experience. And I'm going to share a little bit of that journey and what motivates me to continue on this journey and what lies ahead for me in the world of museums. I wanted to share this slide, especially in the context of the recent Supreme Court rulings in the 1990s. As some of you may know, that there was a riot-like situation in Jaipur, and there was curfew in the city, and there were public service announcements of peace and calm that were rendered by different members of the community. And for some reason, Doordarshan decided to contact me, and I was one of the voices of calm for the city of Jaipur during this very difficult time. This was, at that time, I wasn't really aware of my role in the realm of museums beyond a 10 to 5 or 9 to 5 job. But this was a moment where I realized that the social responsibility that goes with being in such a position extends through most of the responsibilities that go with running a museum or being a glue for civil societies. I ended up working in Saudi Arabia for the National Museum of Saudi Arabia, Ferrari World in the UAE, Singapore Discovery Center, the Grand Teton National Park, the Taiwan Sea Center in Santa Barbara, the Copia Wine and Food Museum in Napa Valley, Wichita Falls Riverbend Nature Center, the Reagan Public Library, St. Louis Science Center, and a few other projects like the Audubon Insectarium, an international wetland center with Borneo peat swamp exhibits in Hong Kong, the Island Ocean Visitor Center in Homer, Alaska, the U-505 submarine in Chicago. And one day I got a call from the Smithsonian to work on the Star Spangled Banner, which is the banner that inspired the American national anthem. The banner was stitched in 1812, was kept in General Armistead's family till 1904, and then was kept in a cabinet at the Arts and Industries building at the Smithsonian for the next 60 years. And then it hung inside the lobby of the American History Museum, and eventually it was taken out. The flag was restored over 7 years, and finally it is now on display. Subsequent to that, I was contacted by the National Marine Corps Museum to set up the exhibits for the National Marine Corps Museum in Quantico. And the situation with working on stressful assignments, especially on very difficult topics, prompted me to focus a little bit on myself and my inward journey. And my inward journey of meditation was focused primarily on painting. So I studied classical art for 14 years, never used it, but my vocation actually sort of forced me to focus on meditative themes as a means of meditation. That helped me focus better on some of the responsibilities that lay ahead for me in the world of museums. Worked in Cairo with Mrs. Mubarak on a very large education complex and the Connecticut Science Center in Connecticut. Some years ago, Moshe Safdie was hired to build one of India's largest museums, the Viraste Khalsa, and those days it was called the Khalsa Heritage Center. Very large 100-acre site, a very large museum, 650,000 square feet with 25 galleries and free admission for visitors. And then subsequent to that, I did the master plan for Bhuj on the Earthquake Museum on a 400-acre site. Human Rights Museum, which is about UDHR. And one of my last assignments, which I'm going to quickly share with you, was to set up a dinosaur museum in northern Alberta. Northern Alberta is a site where you find dinosaur, theropod, and sauropod tracks. There was a large bone bed that was discovered in northern Alberta with an estimated 20,000 animals in one single site. And the museum was decided, the county of Grand Prairie decided to set up a dinosaur museum out there, where we used different means of taking people with helicopters over the densest bone bed site in the world. And you can see the building adjacent to the Alaska Highway and some of the exhibit experiences inside. Now, this was a very fast museum project that was built in under 23 months, with 13 months of construction, which was the fastest museum project ever built in North America. I wrote some of these experiences in multiple books on the future of museums. And one day when I was in Portland, Oregon, I got a call from Senator Daniel Inouye's office to work on an assignment in Hawaii. Now, I readily accepted without really finding out too many details of what I was getting into. And the mandate was simple. There was some federal money that had to be utilized to mitigate a growing divide between the astronomy community and the Hawaiian communities. And on the face of it, it seemed like a very simple proposition. And if you've been to the Big Island of Hawaii, you may know that the Big Island holds the world's largest telescopes, the optical telescopes. So the Big Island also has a live volcano, the Kilauea volcano, and you see the juxtaposition of destruction with creation. It has 11 microclimates, and the peak of Mauna Kea, which is perhaps the tallest mountain in the world from the bottom of the ocean to its summit, it's about 14,000 feet under the ocean and 13,726 feet above the ocean, is the best site in the world for optical astronomy. There are 16 telescopes on Mauna Kea. That includes Gemini, Subaru, Keck, Caltech, NASA IRTF, and so on and so forth. And the WM Keck telescopes can peer back into the skies about 15 billion years. And the capacity of these telescopes is constantly being enhanced with new technologies and so on and so forth. It snows on Mauna Kea, as you can see. And it is also a holy site a sacred site for Hawaiian communities. Just as we have a church and an altar, Hawaiians believe that the church is the sky, the altar is the mountain. And on every peak, there is a desecration by the creation of a telescope without permission. And to make matters a little bit more complicated, the top of the mountain is declared a science reserve, so you have to actually take permission to be up there, and that has created a huge divide between the astronomy and the Hawaiian communities. So part of my mandate was to figure out a way to mitigate this difference. Poliahu, as some of you may know, was one of the four goddesses, four sisters that reside on the Big Island, and those are some of the ceremonies that happen on the Big Island. There's a crater lake on top of Mauna Kea called Lake Waiau, which again is dedicated to goddess Waiau. Hawaii, as you know, is a matriarchal society in the Polynesian terms. The word for man is kane, the word for woman is vahine. It comes from Sanskrit vahan, carrier of life. And in one of my early interactions with some of the elders, they said, you really cannot teach a vahine anything because she's your first teacher. And so this was a learning experience. The interesting thing about Lake Waiau is traditionally the umbilical cord of the firstborn Hawaiian son would be wrapped in tea leaves and put on Lake Waiau. So the connection to the mountain is very visceral. And you see the telescopes on Mauna Kea. And most recently, there was $1 billion telescope, which is called the TMT, the 30-meter telescope, that is going to come up on Mauna Kea. And that has created a huge angst and huge protest among Hawaiians for a variety of reasons. And part of the reason is about cultural autonomy. And that is tied to a number of other causes. And there have been continuous protests, multiple lawsuits, prolonged delays in the construction of the TMT. And those were, some of the challenges with which I landed in Hawaii. And like I mentioned earlier on, little did I know that I was to be thrust in this particular role, which was going to be more and more difficult as things moved forward. This is a historic photograph of the first meeting of the astronomy community. There are 16 directors here from different telescopes. And they're sitting across the table for the first time with a number of Hawaiian elders and different community groups. The gentleman that you see on the right side in a blue t-shirt is Nainawa Thompson. He became a hero, a cultural hero, when he undertook a journey in a double hull canoe from Honolulu to Tahiti and back, not using Western astronomical charts, but traditional Hawaiian charts on his double hull canoe, as you can see on the top right of the slide there. When he returned, he became the cultural advisor to the governor of Hawaii. He sits on the Board of Regents for the University of Hawaii and also is the president of the Polynesian Voyaging Society. These were some of the earlier conversations and earlier renderings of what the center could become. So you get a sense of the mountains of Mauna Kea, the construction of the building, so on and so forth. And these are the opening shots. And in some ways, at times, I felt like an astronaut, with a tether in the space, floating about in space, trying to explore the unexplored. And I'll end this presentation with my present position, where I had the Aquarium of the Bay in San Francisco with 6 other branches. We also run the Sea Lion Center on Pier 39. As you can see, they are all hauled out on Pier 39. And in my first week on this assignment, I saw some of this imagery which shows the distress that some of the sea lions are suffering. And the bay is polluted. It has acidification and all kinds of issues associated with what we've done with our oceans. And I'm on a journey to create a $260 million climate and ocean conservation living museum. I'm going to leave you with a quick video of what this center would become in the coming 2 and 3 years.
That being alive right now, early in the 21st century, being here in the Bay Area with an opportunity to really spread the word, to make people aware of why the ocean matters.
It reminded me of my dad's vision back in 1975, Pier 39. It was that big of an idea, and I think that it is entirely feasible that something of this magnitude can be accomplished, and if anybody can pull it off, it's George.